Hello and welcome to EngLearn. If you've seen any of my videos, you've heard me constantly advising you to be specific in your exams. And for good reason. Being specific and precise really is one of the best things you can do to help you boost your grade. But what exactly does being specific mean? And how can you implement it in your writing? Broadly speaking, being specific means you are detailed, so you provide the necessary details and examples. Precise, meaning not vague but focused. Concrete instead of abstract. Clear and concise, expressing your ideas in just enough words, no more, no less. But why is being specific important? Why should we care about that? First of all, because not being specific can cause many problems in communication. In your exam, it will cause you to lose your marks, and in real life, your message will not get across clearly. This is so because writing that is not specific does not have depth. When using oversimplified, vague words and expressions, you're not able to express complex ideas. Being specific, on the other hand, allows you to showcase the full range of your vocabulary and the full complexity of your original thinking, helping you score higher. So how do you do this practically? Today, I will give you 5 ways to add precision to your writing. They are adding details and examples, using precise words, using concrete instead of abstract words, using strong verbs, and avoiding nominalizations. Let's start with the first one, adding details and examples. Here's an excellent quote to help you illustrate the importance of this point. If you really want to shake people out of their reverie and motivate them to sit up and take notice, say these 2 simple words. For example. Examples are important because they provide concrete evidence for your argument. This helps you persuade your reader more easily. The details and examples help substantiate your ideas, lending credibility to them. They also make the text more engaging and appealing to the reader, which is an important element of any piece of writing. Let's look at this in practice. Let's say you've been asked to write a cover letter for university. This could be an exam question, but it is also an example of real-life application of your skills. Imagine writing something like this. I am an excellent student. I enjoy my studies and my teachers always praise my efforts and results. I hope to become a writer one day. I have won numerous awards and my work has been published in several papers. This is all great and lovely, but honestly, it's a little bland. It doesn't stand out in any way. The same text could have been written by anyone, and the person in charge of reading the cover letters has probably seen 1,000 similar examples. Now, let's take a look at a better example. I'm an excellent student with a 4.0 GPA. I especially enjoy studying literature, and I'm rarely seen without a book in my hand. I'm currently reading Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet and marveling at his playwriting genius. He inspires me to pursue my own dream of becoming a writer. I've already made the first steps and have just won a Young Writers Award from the National Writers Association for my collection of short stories. My work has been featured in the Daily Journal, The Times, and National Gazette. Wow, that's so much better. All these additional details and examples, such as providing your exact GPA, mentioning the concrete book you're reading at the moment, and the precise names of awards and newspapers that featured your work, lend so much credibility to your work. So what kinds of details can you add to your writing to make it more appealing? First, you can use concrete examples. Let's say, for example, that you're writing a news report about a burglary. Instead of saying that the thieves stole some jewelry, you're going to indicate exactly what types of jewelry they stole. You could also mention what exactly they looked like according to the surveillance camera recordings, including what kinds of clothes they wore, if they had any prominent features, etc. If you do this strategically and you don't go overboard, your news report will be much more reliable and convincing than if you omit such details. Another way to add details is to use precise numbers or statistics. As I've said several times before, you are free to invent statistics and numbers in this exam. The examiners are testing your writing skills and they don't care if your data is correct in the real world as long as it sounds credible. You can also use real names. Again, I put real in quotation marks because you are free to make them up. I remember an examiner report a few exam sessions ago specifically pointed out that the candidate's news report about a celebrity visiting a high school was good because, among other things, the student mentioned the exact name of the celebrity and the high school, making it much more credible than if they just wrote, "A famous singer came to our school yesterday." Finally, if relevant, you can add historical or cultural references, which will also give credibility to your text. You can use references to famous historical events or important people, just make sure that your references are clear and not obscure. This means that it's probably not a good idea to refer to a tradition, event, or person that is only known in the area where you live, without explaining it. The examiner who will be reading your text probably doesn't know your culture very well, so it would probably be a good idea to stick to references that are understood internationally. The second way to be specific in your writing is to use precise words. I'm sure I speak for all English teachers worldwide when I say that we are collectively allergic to words like good, bad, happy, sad, interesting, funny, stuff, or things. This is because these words are extremely imprecise. In addition to being bland and boring, they're also incredibly overused. The last thing you want in your exam is to bore the examiner out of his mind. So please just get in the habit of removing these words from your vocabulary. They might occasionally benefit you in everyday speech, but they have no place in an English exam. One of the reasons why these words are so disliked is the fact that they've been overused to the point that they've become meaningless. When you say someone is a good person, that doesn't really mean anything. A good person in what sense? This word can have very different meanings to different people. Even a slightly more precise word like generous, kind, or forgiving would be much better, especially if, as we just learned, you follow it by a concrete example of the person's kindness or generosity. A good way to avoid using imprecise words is to get rid of quantifiers. Quantifiers are those little words we use to try to emphasize a bland word we use. So instead of saying the birthday party was good, we might say it was very good, or really good, or totally good. But the truth is, these quantifiers don't help at all. They just make us sound even more boring and less confident. So the next time you're tempted to use one of them, try to choose a stronger, more precise word instead. So for example, instead of saying she is extremely tired, you can say she is exhausted. Instead of saying you're hungry, say you're starving, and instead of saying you're very cold, say that you're freezing. For similar reasons, you should also avoid vague, general words like sometimes, something, somewhere, someone, and so on. Instead, just give a concrete example or detail, like we learned in part 1 of this video. For example, instead of saying she usually has something for breakfast, say what that something is. She usually has toast and eggs for breakfast. See how much better that sounds? The word something makes me feel nothing at all. But eggs and breakfast? That sounds great. The third way to add precision to your writing is by using concrete instead of abstract words. I really like this quote that says, "Chocolate is the concrete manifestation of love." Love is an abstract noun. We can't touch or smell or taste it, but we can express it through tangible things like chocolate. Chocolate is a concrete noun. Concrete words are words which can be experienced through the 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. They work because they help the reader create a specific image of what the author is saying in their mind. When we say love, different people picture very different things in their heads. But when we say chocolate, we all know how it tastes, smells, and feels. Using concrete instead of abstract words goes hand in hand with an extremely important writing principle called show, not tell. This principle tells us that instead of telling our readers how someone felt or what the situation was like, we should show them the scene by using concrete language. This technique is used mostly in imaginative writing, but can also be very useful when providing details in non-fiction texts as well. Instead of using adjectives that describe or explain the situation to our reader, as in these examples, she was nervous because of the test, the lady was old, I was so sad, we should paint a picture in the reader's mind by using descriptive details, appealing to the senses and using characters' thoughts and actions. Listen to this. Her heart pounded fast. With each passing minute, the ticking of the clock in the background became louder. Only 5 minutes left. She felt a cold bead of sweat roll down her forehead. Her clammy hands barely held on to the pencil. As I read this, could you feel how nervous the girl was? I imagine yes, and that's exactly what the author wanted. So much more powerful than just saying she was nervous. Why is showing instead of telling so important? Well, for one, your audience is intelligent. They don't need you to tell them everything. Describe the observable physical effect the feeling had, not the cause. Through these specific observable details, the reader can come to his own conclusions. If your description is clear and detailed enough, the reader can conclude the girl was nervous on his own. You need to make the readers a part of the experience and immerse them in the scene you're describing. Give them an active role in the experience. Students often rely on telling because telling is factual and matter-of-fact. It gets the point across. But the purpose of a writing exam is not for you to show the examiner you know how to get the point across. The point is to show that you can get the point across in the most elegant manner possible. Telling instead of showing is a mistake many students make, especially if they have a strong background in science or technology. Their writing sounds very technical, and even when they write fiction, it feels like they're giving a report. This is the effect telling has on the reader. There are instances when this is perfectly fine, but in most cases you want your writing to be more specific and detailed, stirring emotions and provoking thinking. The fourth way to be specific in your writing is to use strong verbs. Strong verbs are verbs that describe a very concrete, specific action. Just like you should avoid vague adjectives like good or bad and vague nouns like things and stuff, you should also try to use verbs that are more specific than say, walk, sit, or want. There are more precision versions of verbs like this that have much more nuanced meanings and instantly elevate your writing. Some things you should try to avoid are using the verb to be when it can be replaced with a stronger verb, using there is or there are instead of a verb, and using weak verbs with adverbs instead of a more precise verb. The fifth way to boost your writing and make it more precise is to avoid nominalizations. Nominalizations are nouns made from verbs and adjectives, also called zombie nouns, because they kill your writing. In technical writing especially, people tend to use way too many nominalizations, which makes their writing unclear and obscure. Let's look at this example from Helen Sword. She points out that the sentence, "The proliferation of nominalizations in a discursive formation may be an indication of a tendency towards pomposity and abstraction," can be expressed much more clearly by saying, "Writers who overload their sentences with nominalizations tend to sound pompous and abstract." I don't think there's a better way to illustrate how damaging nominalizations are. So there you have it, 5 ways to make your writing more precise. This is an immensely important skill for both Paper 1 and Paper 2, so I hope you will get in the habit of using at least some of these methods in your writing. If this video was helpful, please share, like, and subscribe. Happy exam season, everyone!